Can you hear me okay? Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So I better watch my time. I'm minus 17 minutes to start with. So I won't track this too closely, but I'll try and go reasonably quick to accommodate everyone's time. First of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this event and conference. Super exciting, super energy outside, and a super time for our industry and our activities at large. True for you as a brand, true for you as an advertiser, true for you as a tech provider, true for you as an agency partner, true for you as anyone. I'm going to start with a marketer's perspective. How's that? And something very, very simple here, just to kind of put a little bit of context. And this particular pictorial is incomplete, but it's simple enough to make my point. We have many foundational things, and I'm speaking as a marketer, many foundational things that we need, and sometimes they're called MarTech, AdTech, data. They can be characterized by ability to automate your campaigns, ability to take advantage of programmatic, ability to get to a proper world of multi-touch attribution. Why are we doing that, and what is very different for us today? What is very, very different, and we all know it, is the profusion of data that a marketer is dealing with. So when you're in this context, and I just want to play a little game with you then, when you're in this little context, and if you're in a situation, and I'll narrow it down to media, which is fortuitous given the conversation that we just had, which was very interesting, I thought. I'll show you something and say, just imagine for one moment, what would you bid for this data? Placing media. Let's try again. You have no idea. You have no idea about the volume of data that's coming. That's just a little pictorial example, which is about 10 times slower than the actual volume of data that comes at a typical brand in a moment in time. It is just beyond the human to handle that. And you'll see where I'm going now in a few minutes with this. Now let me try it from another perspective. You're a consumer. So now you're the other side of that jazzed up data stream. And you want to do something, and you want to do something simple like a search on a belt. So you could expect that you'll get an ad at some point. But are you ready for an ad, an ad, an ad, an ad, an ad, an ad? Is that what you want? So just because the data enables that doesn't mean one should do that. But what we all know as consumers is that this is often what we experience. So what is it that we want to now just go to from a different point of view? I'm just going to go back to our data streams and just start to decompose it, first of all at a relatively, I'd say, simple level, and then just kind of get a little bit more complex in a few minutes. So back to the problem itself. The problem itself is that the contemporary marketer, no matter where you are, is dealing with a world where there's a data infusion. And what we are asking ourselves is, do you want to be like the belt guy and say, I can access this amount of data, and yes, place, in that example, media, or there's many different messaging examples, but how could you get to a point of actually using all of the data to serve your consumer, your prospect, your client? So back to our data. This is easy. It's pretty easy for a demographic data set. Gender, age, age band. We all know we can get to that. A little bit more complicated, but relatively straightforward. Location. Again, platform, type of operating system, so you can start to fill in this type of color. Even time of day. This is like table stakes. Yet even these table stakes are not always brought to bear for the belt searcher that I will now refer to. It is often not even at that level of sophistication. So once you get all this profusion of data points, there's a little pictorial of, now I've got the demographic, I've got location data, I may have some other information about an individual. So you have one individual. And then you have 100, 1,000, 10,000, 1,000,000, 10 million. Inside of this, how do you then get to the level of precision that is meaningful for us as an individual prospect, an individual client, and what is our expectation? There's been a number of themes around here that I've heard in this day about value exchange. And it's so important that as anybody then starts to be ready to share their data points, what is the value that is given in return? When we talk about marketing, and I know I asked you a little silly question about bidding for that little spectrum of light. This is a little bit more serious question. What is the most important thing in marketing? Insights. This has been the most important thing in marketing for, let's say marketing started 10,000 years ago. This has been the most important thing in marketing since 10,000 years. And it is a constant, because it's people. You go right down to the very basics of what it is that we're trying to do. And if you're a professional marketer, you must start with your audience, you must start with your understanding of audience, and you must start with respect for what that audience is aiming to achieve. The fact that we can bring other aspects to this, around content, media mixes, et cetera, is all very interesting and valuable, but if you have not solved the first question of audience understanding, then you are failing as a marketer. What does people understanding actually mean? Is it sufficient to know gender, age, location, time? Well, that's the belt guy. Yes, so you do want to know who they are. Yes, you need to then add what is it that they need, and what actually do they care about. So how do you go in this world then to color in that view of the person, and to bring that to bear in terms of your marketing of the future? Because I'll posit to you now that what I started with, you need a MarTech, you need an AdTech, you need your data, you need your instrumentation, we need your DMP, we need your DSP, we need whatever. They become like table stakes. That will not allow you to differentiate yourself in any regard of a brand, regard of a platform, regard of a partner, and most of all, regard in the eyes of the people that you're marketing to. You need a very, very, very different set of capabilities to bring that to bear. For us in IBM, when you think about that, it brings you to what is cognitive marketing. So how in this profusion of data can you bring a very different level of insights to bear? A level of insights that allows to, and I'll give you a few examples now in a minute, allows you to get beyond the basic sets of data that frankly become a common currency over time. Yes, there are differences right now as data sets are built, as platforms are built, but over time, that will commoditize. The level of insights and the level that you will want to build, the actual view of people as individuals, and then people patterns around that, the demands around that are very, very different as they evolve now in time. So let me then just go into some examples. And I'm just going to give you two examples about Watson. Watson is not a system. It's not a box. It's not something you put something into and it comes out. Watson is actually a set of capabilities. One of those capabilities is a rich array of them, well over 100. One of them is something called personality insights. And personality insights basically allows, with a text observation of it's most complete at about 1,000, 1,200 words, but it can start with already 100. So you can start to build an insight on personality and build, the 5 big personality traits: openness, agreeableness, extroversion, neuroticism, consciousness. These here, you have an example of some tweets from one of the great leaders in India, your Prime Minister. So what could you do with this? You could actually build a personality map. Personality map, if you look at the blue here, that is actually those 5 great personality traits, but it also starts to allow you to see needs and values. And you'd start to see here, and you can interpret this, and I'll give you a few highlights as you would interpret it. This is a person who is imperturbable, but somber, not afraid to contradict, enjoys life, so some very clean attributes that come out. Another person, Kohli, so your cricket captain. Also imperturbable, but tranquil. Also likes to contradict. Is actually much more biased towards sophistication than self-belief of others and self-needs of others. So there's a different value there, but also likes to live life to the full. So here are just 2 leaders that at one level you could say they're exactly the same, but tranquility and somberness are not the same thing. They're simply not the same thing. And if you look at some things like the needs in terms of idealism, let me just go back one and you'll see the picture, versus harmony. These are very subtle differences, and at a human level make material difference in terms of how you present a message, how you present some content, and where you engage with people. Obviously, these are 2 famous leaders. There are not that great distinctions because they actually have personalities that are very alike, as you would expect given their actual particular roles. But with this, you can start to then see into the literal personalities by the pattern of beyond structured data points in the observations, but you can start to see deeper into now the personalities of the individuals that you need to interact with. I'll come back a little bit about how this applies itself. So over and above personality, I want to give you a second example here, which is around tone. So I'm not going to read all this text out to you, but if you read a few lines of it, it's about, you can nearly smell some pancakes here. You can feel some sunshine. There's syrup running and raining, cream. So it gives a particular tone. And any body of text actually gives tone. It gives tone that allows you to see, if you have a capability like Watson, allows you to read emotional balance, allows you to read a language style, and again starts to tie back here in terms of social tendencies back to the personality traits that I talked about earlier, the 5 big personality traits. So let's just stop for a minute on language style. If my language style is analytic, likelihood is that your messaging style to me should be analytic. If my emotional positioning is one of fear, or one of sadness, or one of joy, then you know exactly also what is actually the tone that you want to put in your messaging. And messaging means not just textual, but it means visual, it means sound, it means so many different things. So when you start to now think about, back to our belt example, and many of us are using dynamic content, we're using variation of representation, et cetera, but what the individual expects, just like we would on a one-to-one conversation, the individual will have that expectation in the value exchange that they start to have tone, their personality, and other expectations actually reflected in the positional context of your media, positional context of your actual messaging and creatives. So, what do you do with all of this, you say? This is where you take the more simple data that I talked about earlier, demographic data, location data, platform data, etc. And you start with the benefits of machine learning and cognitive systems like Watson. Start to put all of the rest of that together. And now you can start to build a very, very different set of insights to your data. And when you then come down the road on that, what might you do? For us, we are starting to apply this in many aspects of our marketing. I'm going to talk about one, which is around cognitive bid optimization. So basically, when you think about all of these various aspects of observation, how do you put that data into one system? How do you build pattern from that? How, in this particular example I'm going to talk about for media bidding, how can you put that into multivariate optimization so that you can actually apply it in a very, yes, commercial sense, but even more importantly for us in terms of this particular example as a marketer, even more importantly, how you can put it in the context of very different value to the consumer at the other side of the table. Very materially, what does it mean? Cost conversion, this particular example. Cost conversion. Nothing more complicated than that. So we've been doing this for about 12, 15 months now. Our standard observation is that we can get a little over 20% improvement on cost conversion. We have case examples of 70% or better, but on average about 22%. And if you like, are saving thousands, actually it starts to be more than thousands of dollars to do that, millions of dollars as it adds up. And as importantly as the efficiency that brings, which is important, of course, even more important is how you then bring that and you infuse it back into the entirety of your marketing and how you will activate programmatic in a different way, because that then starts to put a very different picture on the experience and the interaction that you will have with your prospects and clients. So when you come and you look at this data, it has a different color. It literally has a different color. And you have the ability now to just paint something very different. The particular example I've given, bid optimization, so too you can apply that to understanding media performance, independent of data. So too you can understand that in the context of conversion. There are many, 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 many different places that you can apply that insight of cognition. I'd argue that when you go down the road here and you talk about, yes, there are different technologies around MarTech. Yes, there are different technologies around AdTech. Yes, there are different ways of capturing data and instrumenting. But what is your differentiator ultimately in value as a brand, as a platform, or as a partner? It will not be on what will be increasingly commoditized processes and algorithms. I urge you to immediately start to think about where that level of differentiation is. And it is around augmented intelligence or cognitive, applied very broadly. And in the spirit of not being too commercial about it, I would encourage you to go to the Cognitive Lounge that IBM has just around the corner here, and you can start to see in very material and more deep cases examples of that applied in many parts, not just of marketing, but of other parts of business. So with that, I'm now in the credit of 18 minutes. I don't know where I started, but I was debited of 17, and now I'm credited in some way. I have no idea how long I've been here, but I've been trying to respect of time. But I'm going to assume that I could take questions for 5 minutes if that was of interest.
Hi, I'm Raghu. I run a company called Yellow Messenger, which provides conversational advertising.
Hi,
My question here was, all the data that you talked about is data based on the user has already left behind, but probably not data that is right now in his mind. That's something we're trying to address, and I just wanted to see how far conversations as a data point, real-time conversations that actually talk to the ad, can impact advertising, and what's IBM's view on it?
Yeah, okay, there's two immediate reactions. Great question. Two immediate reactions. One very tactical, because I'll answer it like a marketer, and then one more practical that may be even more interesting for you in terms of the work that you do. So maybe I should start with yours. Literally, as we think about advertising, let's just kind of go to that. What is the nature of an ad in the future in this cognitive context? There are actually some examples at that aforementioned place which is the Cognitive Lounge, of advertisements of the future, in my opinion, which are literally individual, personalized cognitive advertisements, so that you share with the advertisement experience itself, and that the ad itself learns, which is a very, very different. Usually there's a weather company example there, and some other examples. It's a very, very different type of advertising. The second thing, so that's you change. We're not talking about bidding. We're actually putting cognition into the exchange with the individual with the ad. The second reaction I have is a little bit like a marketer or a data guy or a machine learning guy, which is, because you never have perfect data. If you wait for perfect data, it's called history. And history, somebody has won, right? So what you always want to do is, and you can do this just like you can in analytic methods of today, take your primary data and use that contextually, use that in lookalike systems, use that in many, many, many different, more normal or well-known analytic modeling. Yeah? So that's the second thing, and that is very effective. It does bring you around to, and brings me back to a very important point when we think about data here, very particularly for any brand. Data is your prime asset. It is your prime asset. It is not something that you should be sharing or allowed to be leveraged by others. It is your prime asset. Others can help you to analyze, develop insights, house, transport your data, but it's your prime asset, literally to be competitive in the future. So thank you.
Hi, sir. I'm Shiny. I'm from Z Digital.
Hey, Shiny.
Yeah. I wanted to know, can Watson help me create multiple formats of the same ad to suit different personalities? For example, you said our Prime Minister is tranquil while our cricketer is sorry, you said the Prime Minister is sober while the cricketer is more tranquil. If I have an ad with me, can Watson help me create a sober version of it as well as a tranquil version of it? Is that possible, or is it something we're working towards?
Watson augments intelligence. Creativity is another thing. So I just want to be very, just be very clear about that. These things have limits, right? It is not. There's conversation that sometimes goes that artificial intelligence can replace the human. It's not our belief. I think where you're going is the aspects of creativity. I think what you can get from a system like Watson is expected effect of different treatments. That's certainly something that can be developed over time in learning. What you can get from a Watson application is options. But the moment in time that we're able to yet see something that's very tailored like that, I've not yet seen it, and I'm not holding my breath. But it can help. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Samprita. I was just wondering, and this might be a slightly operational question, on where it all starts with Watson. So does Watson start at zero with me, using my first-party data to understand, learn, and build, or does it come with preset notions, so to speak, and then builds on after it's been used?
So the Watson system is just like in some aspects, it's a learning system, okay? So learning systems need to be fed content. I'll give you some simple examples, and then we just get into marketing, right? The simple examples are, Watson needs to learn a language, Hindi. Watson needs to learn medicine. You ingest journals. Watson needs to learn legal terms. Ingests legal, okay? In the context of something like marketing, it needs to ingest typically data and experiential data. Mostly the highest value data is your first-party data, which obviously you have. So there is a learning pattern, and it takes some period of time. It's not, I don't know what your data sets are like and how complex they are and how ready they are, but it's not like, it's not like a lifetime of ingestion here. You're talking about weeks, something like that, just in terms of setting it up. The likelihood that the the critical data is public data is possibly low, but obviously public data and things like that are more easier to prepare. But I think the insights typically come from your first-party data. And that's why I will go back again and encourage everybody to remember that is your prized jewel. Do not have it borrowed, leveraged, stolen, or whatever is the right words by others.
Any further questions, ladies and gentlemen? All right then, so on that note, it's time to thank our keynote speaker as well. Let's have a round of applause to thank Mr. John. Thank you very much. And with that, we'll march ahead to also introduce our final keynote speaker for the day one of the summit.